So this happened when I was 16. I'm 25 now, but I still think about it often. This probably isn't as major as what others share here, and it is the first time I'm sharing it with anyone. I lived in an area where my school was within walking distance. It had been raining all night and into the morning, and I had two paths that I could take to get to school. I always chose the same path on my way to school, and the same path to go home every day. So after I get out of school, I start walking down the same path I always do, and there were other kids that took the same path as well. It was roomy enough for all of us. It was sunny after all that rain, but there were puddles here and there. For as long as I can remember, there was this huge pothole in the ground that would always fill with water during a rainy day. And I'm a big guy, and this hole wasn't deep, but it was pretty wide. I could fit my whole body in it if I tried. I'm always careful to avoid it, but that day I just wasn't paying attention. I tripped and fell. Everything from my mid-torso down to my shoes were in the puddle. I closed my eyes and put my hands out and braced myself. I felt my body splash, even felt some water sprinkle my face. I remember being worried about ruining my clothes because my mom was really strict about that sort of thing. When I got out of the puddle, stood up and opened my eyes expecting the worst. I couldn't understand what had happened. I wasn't wet at all. I distinctly remember my entire body, minus my head and upper torso, falling in the pothole. As soon as I realized what was going on, I got dizzy and felt a bit sick. I looked down, and the only thing wet that I could see or even feel is the very bottom of my jeans, the little sewn rim. My shoes weren't wet, or my socks. I looked around to see if anyone saw what had happened, but no one was paying any attention. After I got home, I took all my clothes off and looked very carefully at them, only seeing the sewn rim of my jeans now slowly beginning to dry that was wet. I never bothered sharing because who would believe me? Maybe this isn't a Mandela effect, but I thought I would share. This isn't some huge glitch like dying and respawning, or forgetting people entirely, but it still weirds me out constantly, and has me thinking that I'm batshit crazy sometime. Anyways, on to the action. My dad's parents divorced when he was a kid, and he moved with my grandpa to Arizona, while my aunt opted to stay with my grandma in San Diego. When I was around 11 or 12 years old, my grandpa took me and my sister out to California to visit my aunt and cousins and talk to them about some financial issues. My grandpa is extremely smart with money, but that's besides the point. Essentially, my sister and I were just there to tag along and keep him company while he helped my aunt out. On the last day we were in Cali, my grandpa made it a point to take us to a souvenir shop. I can't remember what my sister got, but I was dead set on getting this penny keychain. I didn't even have keys at the time, but I was really into collecting coins. As for the penny, it was just a boat steering wheel with a penny in the middle, and around the twirling penny it said, "San Diego, Lucky Penny." My grandpa, who was a huge fan of money, was always fully supportive of my hobby, and actually the one who got me into it. He had given me his mother's jewelry box to stash my coin collection in, and told me to take very good care of it as it was very special. I didn't get to know my great-grandma all that well before she passed, but I vividly remember being in the hospital the day that she left us. It's a strange memory, but it has stuck with me for as long as I can remember. It's the only time I've ever seen my dad cry, and I can recall holding her hand while she was lying in the hospital bed before we left. I don't remember talking at all, but I can see her face looking back on it. I honestly couldn't have been older than 4 or 5 at the time. Anyway, fast forward to present day. I'm 18 now, and this penny has been following me for 2 years at this point. Before I could drive, I just kept the penny in the box and never really thought about it. Now I keep the penny on the same lanyard I put my keys on, but tend to take it off to play with it every once in a while. I can walk through almost every time I've lost the thing. I've had it disappear at a water park, get lost in the locker room during football season. I've dropped it into random places without noticing more times than I could count. I even broke it off the lanyard at one point when I dropped my keys on the bleachers. The lanyard fell through the stands, and when I went to get it, the penny was gone. I'm talking disappeared off the lanyard entirely. The thing is, no matter what happens to this penny, It always shows up in random places in my house, if I lose track of it. It sometimes shows up in my jewelry box, sometimes on the counter, or the kitchen table. I've had it show up in the bathroom by my toothbrush. Sometimes I'll just wake up and it'll magically be on my lanyard again. I shit you not. I have no explanation for this penny and my inability to lose it. Don't get me wrong, I definitely don't want to get rid of it. I love this little penny, but it seems like no matter what, I just can't seem to lose it. It's oddly unsettling, but at the same time, extremely comforting. I don't know how else to describe it, and I have no logical explanation for it. The only thing I can chalk it up to is that my great-grandma really wants me to have this penny for whatever reason. As for the topic of drugs, alcohol, and mental stability, I can 100% say that I've never tasted alcohol, never tried any drug, and I've never had any mental health issues. I'm clean as a whistle. I don't really know how to start my story, so I guess I'll begin by giving a little bit of a background. My girlfriend and I recently moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. This will be important to the story later on. We'd originally moved into my sister's old house, and she had moved away and left the house by itself while she sold it. My girlfriend and I got a job at the same store, mostly for convenience, since she didn't have her license yet. Now, at the time, we were kind of struggling with money. We didn't really have the kind of money to be driving around or anything like that, so as a result, we only really knew the way to and from work. About a month or so after moving, my sister finally found a buyer, and we had to move again. We tried to find places nearby, but ended up having to move across the city. We found a trailer home on the other side of town, so we had to learn a new route to work. We mostly got around using a GPS still, as we didn't have much time to explore the city. Anyway, one night I had a closing shift, and my girlfriend had a mid-shift earlier, so she had to wait for me. Everything was normal that day. It was a normal day, a normal shift, nothing out of the ordinary. Closing shift dragged a bit, we had some problems with the computer, and we ended up leaving half an hour later than usual. It was 11 p.m. by the time we actually left. My girlfriend and I made our way to my car, but before I started driving home, I realized that I was low on gas. My girlfriend and I started looking for a gas station that was open within the route or nearby on our phones. The part of town that we lived at usually closed everything pretty early, so I didn't really expect one to be open. I was the first to find one. The GPS marked 17 minutes away. I placed my phone on the dashboard and started making my way home and towards the gas station. It was supposed to be a 4-minute detour from our usual route. The route was exactly the same. By this time we had driven just enough for me to begin recognizing landmarks, but not enough to remember the whole way. I took a turn that the GPS marked, which was supposed to lead us directly to the gas station, but it somehow rerouted. All of a sudden my GPS marked not the 7 minutes that it had just told us, but 17 minutes. I found it odd, but kept driving. I thought maybe there was some kind of a traffic congestion. Another turn, and all of a sudden the GPS said that we were 3 hours away. I hit the brakes and stopped abruptly in the middle of the road. The road we came out to was lonely, not like abnormally alone or anything like that. I mean, yeah, it was dark and no cars could be seen, but it wasn't eerily scary or anything. It was just odd. We discarded the reroute as some kind of lost connection or something with my GPS, so my girlfriend pulled out her phone and looked up the right direction. After a few minutes, we began to make our way to the gas station, this time guided by her GPS, and we finally took the correct route. 5 minutes away, said her GPS. When we finally arrived at the gas station, I exclaimed in frustration. The gas station was completely full with cars. Every pump had a car in it. There were lines of at least 2 cars behind each. And there was a car in every parking spot, and there were even cars parked on the side of the gas station. I pulled into the gas station frustrated with the whole ordeal. I was willing to wait behind a car, but to my surprise, pump number 1, which had been hidden from view, was completely open. I quickly drove up to it and parked my car, worried one of the cars waiting might take it. I sighed in relief. It wasn't until then that I realized absolutely every single car was empty. In fact, everything was empty. There were no cars in the street. There was no sound of the wind, no birds, no insects, nothing. It was as if time was frozen or something. I couldn't help but look around. Even my girlfriend noticed. It felt unnatural. I tried to brush it off. I don't even know how I tried to explain it to myself. I began making my way out of my car and to the store to pay for the gas. My girlfriend got out of the car with me. She was clearly afraid, but offered to pump as she usually did. I tried to reassure her that everything was fine, and that I'd do it myself, but she insisted, so I gave in. I started walking towards the store, and as quickly as I realized that even the store was empty, people began to appear. Not coming out of hiding or anything, or from somewhere out of view, but more like just randomly spawning out of thin air. The best way that I can describe it is a game that has been lagging, finally loading up. They were walking to and from the gas station and the pumps, holding conversations. A few cars even drove by, just a few of them at first, and then all of a sudden, the store was full of customers. But even though the store seemed full, there were still not enough people per car. I again brushed it off and went in. After an uncomfortably long, seemingly eternal wait in line that seemed to appear from nowhere, I paid for gas and made my way back. By the time I got back to the car, my girlfriend had begun pumping. I started feeling a little relieved now that whatever happened was over. There were a few more cars passing by on the street, and cars began to pull out of the gas station. Everything was back to normal. All except the van behind us. The people in there were just sitting there, not resting or talking. It didn't even look like they were breathing. My girlfriend pointed them out first. She asked if I hadn't seen them or anything. I told her I had, I'd just been distracted, but the truth is, they weren't there when I walked back. I looked directly into the van, but I saw no one. I didn't tell her about it, though. I didn't want to freak her out even more. As soon as she finished pumping and put the hose back, we started getting in the car. I started the car and drove off as fast as I legally could. As we drove out, we glanced back at the van one last time, just in time to see the people finally start moving. I sped away, trying not to look back. We went home and everything was fine. Nothing else happened. I still don't know what happened, and I've never gone back to that gas station, nor do I plan to. I'm sorry for the long story, and I'm not a professional writer, but I can guarantee that everything I just said is true. Hey Scaredy Cats, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll never miss out on any of the stories. If you have any stories that you'd like for me to read, you can find the links for submissions in the description below.